The Lok Sabha elections of 2019 are underway. While the Desh Ka Mahatyohar, as the Election Commission of India calls it, is a celebration of Indian democracy, for the political parties that are in the fray, it's anything but festive. The combat is brutal and the campaign pitch is vicious. The Congress party is at an existential juncture. On Off Centre today to find out what the Congress has to offer India in 2019 and how the party's strategy has evolved in the last 5 years, I'm talking to veteran Congress leader, Rajya Sabha MP, former Union Home and Finance Minister p.Chidambaram. He's also had a great deal to do with the Congress party's manifesto that was presented recently. Mr. Chidambaram, thank you for taking time. Let's start by looking at some of the political reactions that have come into your manifesto, starting with what the Prime Minister is saying on the campaign trail, calling it a manifesto of Pakistan conspiracies. He's also referred to it as the Congress party helping spread the propaganda of Pakistan. While the current finance minister, Mr. Jaitley, has called it the Tukde Tukde manifesto, especially reacting to some of the plans the Congress party has to review laws, especially the IPC sedition clause and, of course, AFSPA. How do you react to the political reactions that are coming in?
I can only be sorry for them. Both of them, to be very polite, are using terminological inexactitudes. Let's start with the Prime Minister. Why is he so obsessed with Pakistan? For 10 years, under UPA 1 and UPA 2, we kept the peace on the border. There was some friction between India and Pakistan, but never a threat of a war. And peace returned largely, in very great measure, to the Kashmir Valley. The numbers will speak for themselves. Sometimes I think that the Prime Minister is itching for a confrontation with Pakistan in order to win an election in India. His 56-inch chest has obviously failed to protect India. There's more infiltration, more infiltrators who have come to India, more incidents in Jammu and Kashmir, more civilian casualties, more security forces casualties. And the people of the Kashmir Valley are totally alienated. So Prime Minister's Pakistan policy or J&K policy is a complete failure. Now let's take Mr. Jaitley. If he's talking about sedition, I think he should go back to his law library and look at the laws. Sedition is part of a law passed by the British Parliament.
Sure.
It's a colonial law.
Yes.
Since then, the Indian Parliament has passed the Defence of India Act and the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act.
So you're saying it's not necessary and it can be misused the way it does get used in
Sedition is misused.
Sure.
Sedition provision 124A has been grossly misused.
Right. So my question, Mr.
Therefore,
Chidambaram,
if you look at the provisions of the other two laws, they cover everything and more that sedition can cover.
Right.
Obviously, Mr. Jaitley has forgotten his law.
But in the 10 years of UPA 1 and UPA 2, state governments have used it, and the UPA at that time didn't do anything about it. Today there is a change of heart, change of mind, that's acceptable. Question is, what prompted this change?
I don't deny that state governments have used the sedition law. I can't recall a single instance where the central government used it.
I think the central government used Section 66A of the IT Act, which was scrapped by
but we are talking about sedition, I thought.
Sure, you are.
So let's not mix up two things.
Okay.
The state governments have indeed used sedition, which is why in today's manifesto we say we'll repeal that provision.
What has prompted the change of mind that puts individual freedom and human rights, sort of front and center in this manifesto?
Do you change your mind or not when new facts come in place?
So you're saying new facts that have come in play?
I just ask you, as a person, do you change your mind ever or not?
Of course.
Precisely why a party changes its mind. Today there's greater awareness of human rights world over, and in India. There's a lot of young people, a lot of civil society activists who have stress the importance of human rights. And if you don't stress the importance of human rights, the danger is that the state will become more and more authoritarian. The best example is Mr. Modi. Therefore, the stark contrast between authoritarianism and the emphasis on human rights is quite clear. Therefore, going by experience, going by lessons learned, we have come to the conclusion that the sedition law must go.
They are using these elements in the Congress manifesto to put forward the perception that the Congress is soft on terror, soft on separatism, and that the Congress is a soft party and will not provide strong leadership, which is the case that they're making for Mr. Modi for a second term for him and his government. How is this narrative going to be countered by the Congress? Because the manifesto and discussion of the manifesto in the media is one thing, and the discussion of the manifesto with people or amongst the electorate is another.
Nobody believes Mr. Modi when he says that he has kept the country safer than what it was under the UPA. In fact, all the states on the border are gripped with fear. And all the states of North India are gripped with fear. So Mr. Modi's claim that he's kept India safer is complete rubbish. Compare the 10 years under UPA 1 and UPA 2 and the 5 years under Mr. Modi. The numbers will speak for themselves. And the kind of progress we made in mending relations with Pakistan will also speak for themselves. I expect them to do what they are good at, namely thump their chest and cry hoarse that Pakistan is a grave danger. The minions will say Muslims in India are a grave danger. They'll call them a virus. And they will polarize the electorate. This may or may not work in the core Hindi heartland. I assure you, this nefarious attempt to polarize the electorate will not work outside the Hindi heartland.
So you're saying the southern states are not going to accept this?
Southern states will reject the BJP lock, stock and barrel. They will get 0 in Kerala, they will get 0 in Telangana, they will get 0 in Andhra Pradesh, and possibly get 0 in Tamil Nadu. They may win a few seats in Karnataka, but it will be still less than what they have today.
How do you react, sir, to the surveys that seem to suggest that Mr. Modi's approval ratings have gone up since the Pulwama attack and then the Balakot
What are the
strike?
sample size of these surveys? And what did these surveys say just before Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh?
You dismiss them?
I don't dismiss them. I discount them. What is the sample size? Some of these samples are no more than a few thousand. In a country with 130 crore population, speaking different languages and spread as far and as wide as one can imagine, are you suggesting that a sample of 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 will yield results?
So, Mr. Chidambaram, let's look at 3 other areas, substantive areas, in which would result in policy if the Congress party were to become government. Starting with the agrarian distress and the agri crisis. I know that you've said from loan maafi, the effort will be to go to loan mukti, and loan maafi will happen in all the states if you all were to come to power. The question that I have to ask to you is this PM Kisan, which the NDA government has implemented since December 2018 after introducing it in the interim budget. Will this 75,000 crore rupee annual outlay, if your party were to form government, does this stay? Does the Kisan Yojana stay? And if it doesn't, does the expenditure on agriculture stay?
See, a new government is always entirely free to devise its own policies. We are not bound by the policies of a previous government. Therefore, I can't say anything about what policies will be adopted. If the Congress plays the lead role, our policies will be broadly based on the principles that we have set out in Section 7 of this manifesto. PM Kisan scheme, in my view, is only a bribe for vote. It's 2,000 rupees just before elections were notified, and 2,000 rupees before the date of the first phase of polling.
So that's the timing
it's a pure
of it.
bribe for vote.
Sure.
It is 17 rupees per day per family, and it is crumbs thrown at the poor.
The outlay every year for this scheme is going into the agriculture budget, isn't it?
No, it is not. It's simply a dole. It's simply a income support.
Sure.
But an income support of 6,000 rupees a year to the farmer is practically no support. Secondly, that so-called income support goes to the landlord farmer, who may be an absentee farmer. It doesn't go to the tenant farmer.
Yeah.
It doesn't go to the agricultural worker. Of the three limbs of farming today, the second and third are the most vital. The actual tenant farmer, the actual tiller, and the agricultural worker. A friend of mine in Hyderabad said he's a chartered accountant. He has not visited his farm for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And he got money.
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
Therefore, this is a pure cash for vote scheme, and the less said about it, the better. If we devise a scheme of income support to the farmer, it will take into account the nyai, which income support will also cover a large number of farmers,
Sure.
and then we'll have to decide what other income support has to be given to the farmer.
Nyai, that is the centerpiece of the manifesto. It's also the centerpiece of the...
Well, centerpiece of the anti-poverty plank of the manifesto.
Sure.
But the manifesto is not only about anti-poverty.
Yes, give us a sense of how this is going to be funded.
The GDP today is 210 lakh crore.
Right.
210 lakh crore. In 5 years, it will reach nearly 400 lakh crore. The total expenditure of the central...
You're taking a rate of growth of roughly?
Nominal.
Okay.
Even if you take nominal 11, 12, it will go to 400 lakh crore. The total expenditure of the central and state governments today is 60 lakh crore. At the normal rate of growth over the last 5-10 years, it will become a little over 130 lakh crore. Now, what are we talking? In a GDP of 400 lakh crore, at its peak, the Nyai program will cost 3.6 lakh crore, less than 1%. If a country cannot set apart less than 1% of a GDP for 20% of its population, it's a country ruled by heartless people, ruled by callous people. We believe that the country owes it to the poor to set apart a very small fraction of its GDP for the poor. I challenge any economist to come and tell me that this is not doable.
Okay, since I'm nowhere near being an economist, I'm not going to challenge this further. But my question, Mr. Chidambaram, is that is there a sense, as I read this manifesto and look at different parts of it, is there a sense that the 25 years since liberalization, the kind of benefits that the economic reforms that we saw unleashed in the 90s, early 90s, that trickle-down benefits of those have either not happened or have reached a certain level and stopped?
No, that's not correct. You see, in any case where the economy is opened up, the early winners will be those who already had the opportunities, and they will seize the new opportunities. The people who never had the opportunity will take some time to take advantage of the opportunities, which is why in any case of liberalization, inequalities will increase initially, and then inequalities will decrease as wealth gets distributed more evenly. We are at a stage where the early winners reaped most of the benefits.
Sure.
We also went into stage 2, where we created a large middle class. I can boast that the entire middle class in India today is the child of liberalization. What we have not been able to do is to go to the third stage, when the very poor will get a fair share of the growth. That's not happened.
Or to even be able to access it in terms of their education and
Because
facilities.
they have poor education, they have poor health because of limited access to comprehensive health care. They have poor infrastructure, and there are other social inhibitors. The fact you're a Dalit, the fact you're a tribal, the fact you're living in the northeast with no access to banks,
The fact that you're Muslim.
the fact that you are a minority. So all these are social inhibitors. So what we're trying to say is, yes, while liberalization will continue, while we will stress on growth, the time has come when we ask ourselves, can India afford an MISP, a minimum income support scheme? I will readily concede that 20 years ago we could not have afforded this scheme.
Now we can.
I think we can.
This case that you make also in the manifesto is something that the Congress party is saying, which is about health and education not to be just the purview of the private sector, but the state needs to play a bigger role in providing quality education and quality health. Again, is this a changed perspective? Is there a change? Because we know that privatization of education was something, especially higher education, was something that we saw during the time of UPA, to the effort in that direction.
Not at all. The Congress has always believed that education and healthcare are two public goods which have to be delivered by the state. So there are two models of development. One is the European model. One is the pure capitalist model. I don't deny that the capitalist model has also created great universities, great hospitals, great hospital systems. I don't deny that. But the European model is a more compassionate model, it's a more caring model, it's a model that treats rich and poor alike.
Where these basic amenities of life are concerned.
So we believe that education and health must largely be delivered by the state. Therefore, most educational institutions and most healthcare institutions must be in the public sector. Of course, the private sector can supplement it. Those who can afford it can use them. But for the bulk of the people, for the vast majority of the people, education and healthcare must be delivered by the state.
How do you react when journalists and rural affairs experts like P. Sainath say that one of the reasons for the agrarian distress today, 2019, is the kind of reforms that were, he uses the word, unleashed with liberalization and the corporatization of agriculture, which has seen soaring costs of inputs, a globalized market which a small Indian farmer cannot sort of be competitive in? How do you react to that?
I don't agree. Without liberalization, India would be poorer today than what it is. India would be much poorer. We could never have achieved 8.5% average growth over a period of 5 years and 7.5% average growth over 10 years. So I don't agree with those who believe that the old model was a better model. The old model served its purpose but outlived its utility, and therefore we had to switch to a liberalized model.
On jobs, the manifesto says that all central government vacancies will be filled up and that the government will try and the Congress pledges to create lakhs of new jobs for qualified teachers, doctors, nurses, paramedics, technicians, instructors and administrators through a massive expansion of education and health sectors. So these are all government jobs, Mr. Chidambaram, that we are talking about?
We are talking about public goods.
Right.
If these are public goods, education and healthcare, obviously the jobs will be in the public sector.
Right.
And that's perfectly the right thing to do.
And is that, again, what about the economics of it as former finance minister and possible...
This is a completely wrong approach. Do we need to expand healthcare? Do we need to expand
of course.
education? If we need, then we have to spend.
Which is why the allocation that you have made.
Yes. We are hopelessly deficit in teachers, instructors, trainers, We are hopelessly deficit in doctors, nurses, paramedics and technicians. We must create, and we can create, thousands of jobs. It is not for the sake of job creation. It's for the sake of providing these public goods to the people of India.
So job creation is the happy outcome, you're saying, in the investment in public health and education.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chidambaram, let me pull out a little bit from the manifesto now to look at the last 5 years and how the Congress Party's strategy has evolved politically. As someone who is shepherding the strategy for the Congress, what would you identify as the biggest lesson for the party and for its leadership, which includes you, since 2014, and that result?
That we cannot neglect the organization. See, most of our senior leaders are drafted into government.
Sure.
And the party organization is neglected, which I think is a big mistake. In fact, I sometimes nostalgically look back to the Kamaraj plan of 1963, when Jawaharlal Nehru asked his senior ministers to go back to the party. Well, I don't know how it will play out 50 years later, but I think among the senior leaders, among the competent leaders, among the credible leaders, a sizable number must be earmarked for party work and building the organization. We cannot allow the organization to decay while we focus on governance, number one. Number two, whatever we do, we must communicate. We can't be shy of communication. We can't be modest about communication. We don't have to adopt the brash attitude of Mr. Narendra Modi, where he exaggerates and lies. You don't have to exaggerate. You don't have to utter untruths. Even what we have done, we have to communicate more effectively.
You talk about communication, expenditure and poll spending is really where the BJP has a big advantage today vis-a-vis the Congress party. It's, some people say 10:1, some people say that businessmen and corporations have been told not to fund the Congress efforts. How much of a challenge is that in electoral politics, Mr. Chidambaram?
It is a big challenge. See, every rally of the Prime Minister costs several crores of rupees. I believe the pandal rivals the marriage pandal of a very rich family. There are dozens of LED screens located at strategic places so that the people can watch it. Now, who's funding this? Where is the money coming for this? And secondly, if this money is being spent to campaign for a candidate or more than one candidate, is the money being proportionately credited or
accounted for
in the account of the candidate? For example, in Tamil Nadu, if an alliance party holds a public meeting all by itself supporting the candidate may not be there at all. The entire expense of that meeting is put on the election expenditure account of the candidate. Now, all the crores of rupees that are being spent on Mr. Narendra Modi's rallies, which candidate is bearing the responsibility for that? I mean, I think the Election Commission has been totally partisan. I've asked this question today and I hope there will be an answer. Is that expenditure being accounted for in one or more candidates' election account? The press is silent. It's a silence of the lambs.
What is in the Supreme Court is the petition that opposition parties, including the Congress, have filed against wanting VVPAT verification for in 50% of the EVMs. The EC has come back saying that will take 5 days, 6 days and delay the results. The counter affidavit says 3 days, right? From your party, from the parties wanting it.
I think it's an outlandish argument of the EC to say it will take 6 days. How can it take 6 days? I don't think it will even take 3 days. But I think the opposition parties have conceded. Even if it takes 3 days, so what? For example, elections in the first phase is April 11. The result is going to come out on May 23.
Yeah.
So they're anyway waiting for about
so 3 more days
42
makes no
days.
difference.
What does it matter if it comes out after three days?
But you're saying it's important, critical to have this 50%
My
VVPAT verification?
My personal view is 100% verification.
100% verification.
See, the EVM was intended to achieve two things. Eliminate invalid votes and eliminate ballot stuffing. That's all. Both have been achieved by the EVM. But the EVM does not ensure transparency in the vote count. It's only the VVPAT which ensures that. Without the VVPAT count, what's the use of an EVM? Which is why we say the EVM count must be matched with the VVPAT count. If both match, all objectives of a free and fair vote are satisfied. Without matching it with the VVPAT count, I think the free and fair voting principle is to a large extent compromised.
You do not see this as a reaction of people who are losing elections. So even though the Congress party has won Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan recently, you still want this VVPAT 50%, and if you were to have your way, 100% verification.
Yes.
In 2004, when the Congress party came in as the first UPA and created the first UPA government, one of the things it came to power on the back of was the stitching up of alliances across the country. In 2019, we can't say the same thing, and you talked earlier in the conversation about the Hindi states. That is where these alliances, or the lack of these alliances, political reporters and analysts say will hurt the Congress.
Factually wrong.
Okay.
We'll first look at the non-Hindi states. So we have alliances in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka and Puducherry. Except in Andhra and Telangana, we have alliances. In Andhra, it appears that the two other parties are keen for a post-poll alliance with the Congress. Now let's move to the east. Odisha.
Before you move, Jagan Reddy has just said that he's forgiven the Congress.
Yeah, I said, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Both the other two parties seem to be keen on a post-poll alliance with the Congress. That's a good sign. In the east, in Odisha and West Bengal, both of them are going alone. They are not in alliance with Congress or anyone else.
Sure.
Now we come to the West.
So they would be the X factor, like news channels would like to call it.
We don't know.
Okay.
They both want to go it alone. Then we come to the West. Obviously in Gujarat we have no alliance, but in Maharashtra we have a powerful alliance.
Sure.
We come back to the Hindi states. Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, we don't need an alliance. We are the lead party. If any of the smaller parties wanted an alliance, they should have approached us.
Sure.
There's no need for an alliance.
Right.
Punjab again, which is not Hindi, but still let's count it as Hindi. We don't need an alliance. Which leaves UP, Bihar and Jharkhand. We have an alliance in Jharkhand. We have an alliance in Bihar. So what does it reduce to?
80 seats.
We don't have an alliance in UP. But you started the conversation by saying we don't have an alliance anywhere. We don't have an alliance in UP, full stop. And today Jyotiraditya Scindia has said that if the BSP and SP want a post-poll alliance, we are willing to have one. We initiated many conversations, but there was no response from Ms. Mayawati. So hopefully she will have a change of heart post-poll.
But at the moment, Mayawati has asked the Muslim community specifically not to vote for the Congress and divide the votes over there. Akhilesh Yadav has said the Congress and the BJP are mirror images of each other. So
I can say the same thing. We can appeal to the Muslim community to say, don't vote for Mayawati and divide the secular vote. We made many efforts, but for our own reasons, Ms. Mayawati was unwilling.
Sure.
Mr. Akhilesh Yadav was very willing, but he is now tied to Ms. Mayawati.
Right. So, Mr. Chidambaram, as the first phase gets underway, What is the best case scenario for the Congress? What is your analysis? What is your party's analysis of the Congress party's performance in these elections?
This is entirely the province of enterprising, adventurous, and usually wrong journalists.
No, not election analysts.
Usually wrong journalists. The great fiasco of the NDTV when they did Bihar is there as a lesson for all of you. There is no national election. This is a collection of state elections. If there's no election in Tamil Nadu in the first phase won't change a jot as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned.
Right.
If there is no seventh phase in Tamil Nadu, it makes no difference to Tamil Nadu. So each state, you have to take it as a separate unit and ask the question, what is the situation in that state? No one with any degree of common sense will try to predict a national election when there's no national election.
We saw income tax raids on Kamal Nath's family. You have tweeted that there is indication that your homes may be raided. What has these past 5 years been for you personally? If I can ask you a personal question, because it has been hard on you, your son.
I told you that I don't discuss cases in the media.
Sure.
There can be no media trial. The trial can only be in a court of law. Just as a matter of fact, I will tell you, there are only FIRs against us.
Sure.
A first information report. There's not even a charge sheet which has been taken cognizance by court. It is the FIR which is everywhere. For 5 years there's been an FIR. So let it remain. And I don't discuss cases in the media.
It's only because you tweeted it, so I thought that maybe...
But I tweeted it not for discussion in an interview. We are discussing the manifesto, which is a much more relevant document. I hope you agree that this manifesto is more relevant than a false FIR.
I think the manifesto has pushed a lot of, lot of the right buttons, and it has been welcomed by a lot of people. It's definitely got a lot of conversation going, Mr. Chidambaram. Thank you very much. I wish you a lot of good luck.
Thank you.